Before we begin, let me make one thing very clear. We are not saying this is exactly how prophecy will unfold. We are not prophets, but we are watchmen. Jesus commanded us to watch. Luke 21:36 tells us to stay awake and pray so we can escape what is coming and stand before the Son of Man. We don't claim to know every date or name, but we do know the titles. And those are in the Bible, and today we can identify exactly who those players are. What we don't know is how each move will play out. But once you see these patterns, you'll understand why it feels like we may be witnessing prophecy in real time. Let's start at the beginning with Gog, the Assyrian, the Antichrist, and the King of the North. Scripture reveals these as four titles for the same man, the final enemy of God. In Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, we read, "Son of man, set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal." Gog is not a country, that's a person. He leads nations including Persia, Libya, Ethiopia, Gomer, and Togarmah, today's Iran, Turkey regions, Sudan, and more. Ezekiel says Gog invades Israel in the latter days from the far north. God's response is supernatural. Fire and judgment fall directly on Gog and his armies. Now consider the Assyrian. Micah 5 states, "When the Assyrian comes into our land, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds." Isaiah 10 calls him the rod of God's anger, used against Israel but later judged. Isaiah 14 compares his arrogance to Lucifer's fall. Here, the Assyrian is not just an ancient conqueror, he is prophetic. He invades Israel, and he is judged by the Messiah. This is the same figure, Gog the Assyrian. Daniel 11 then names him the King of the North. Starting in verse 21, "A contemptible person shall arise. He shall come in without warning, obtain the kingdom by flatteries." From verse 21 on, this man breaks covenants, desecrates the temple, takes over the land, and meets his end. He comes from the north, the same region Ezekiel and Micah speak of. And Revelation 13 confirms he is the beast, empowered by Satan, worshipped for 42 months, and waging war on the saints. In other words, Gog, the Assyrian, the King of the North, the Antichrist, they are all one and the same. A singular final man of lawlessness prophesied across multiple books. Now let's look at how the timeline shifts and pay attention to Daniel 11:19-21. Verse 19 says, "Then he shall turn his face back toward the fortresses of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and shall not be found." That's Antiochus III the Great. He returned home, tried to plunder a temple, and died suddenly. That verse is firmly historical. No debate among scholars or historians. It's the last clearly fulfilled verse in the historic section of Daniel 11. But verse 20, that one is different. "Then shall arise in his place one who shall send an exactor of tribute. But within a few days he shall be broken, neither in anger nor in battle." Historically, this points to Seleucus IV Philopator, but the language could also match a modern figure. A leader who holds fragile power, raises money or taxes, and then vanishes quietly, not by war, not by rebellion. That description fits Bashar al-Assad of Syria today more than most realize. Assad's grip on Syria has weakened. His health has been rumored to be failing. If he were to be removed without war or anger, then Daniel 11:20 may have a double fulfillment, ancient and modern, and verse 21 would be next. "In his place shall arise a contemptible person. He shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries." Now watch this. On February 15th, 2024, the oldest Christian church in Damascus was bombed during a service. This wasn't random. This was a spiritual signal. Damascus, the historic capital of Syria, the land of the Assyrian, was hit at its heart. Days later, reports began circulating of a new Syrian figure rising in the background. A man not appointed by inheritance but by alliances, backed by foreign powers, using diplomacy to gain power. This is Daniel 11:21 in motion, right now. So who is the king of the south? Daniel 11:40 says, "At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, but the king of the north shall rush upon him like a whirlwind." In ancient prophecy, the king of the south was always Egypt. Today, Egypt is the most likely modern match. And right now, Egypt is being considered for temporary governance over Gaza. They won't own the land, but they may rule it under a new 2-state agreement. That places them in direct contact with the conflict brewing in Syria. And when they eventually push, even diplomatically, the king of the north will respond. That response, Daniel says, will be a whirlwind. He will overrun many nations, He will enter the glorious land Israel. Now let's look at the present moment. Donald Trump was re-elected in November 2024 and began his second term on January 20th, 2025. He has worked to stabilize the Middle East and protect Christian freedoms. He helped broker and strengthen the Abraham Accords. But prophecy watchers know this window could be brief. If, and that's a big if, the tribulation began on October 3, 2024, during the Feast of Trumpets marked by the solar eclipse. Then the midpoint, when the Antichrist is revealed, would fall in April 2028, during the time of Passover. That's when Jesus said the abomination of desolation would be set up in the temple. And that brings us to a sobering reality. If something were to happen to President Trump before April 2028, whether politically, physically, or through an early departure, we should keep our eyes open. That moment could be the exact window the man of sin steps forward fully. We could be wrong, and maybe the tribulation hasn't started yet. It could start this year or next. But either way, it's good to be ready for the possibilities, because every piece is moving right now in full alignment. And let's say, just for the sake of warning, that something has happened to Trump. Let's say he did not finish his term. Suddenly the stabilizing influence is gone. The one man defending the church publicly removed. The Abrahamic alliance suddenly looks for a new leader. Syria, already rising, steps in. Egypt, already overseeing Gaza, pushes diplomatically. The king of the north responds, just as Daniel described. If all of this is happening right in front of us, and we stay silent, then we are not watchmen. This could be Daniel 11:21 unfolding. It could be Revelation 13 setting up. It could be the final world system rising while the world sleeps. If this opened your eyes or made you think about anything you haven't yet, please hit that like button and share this so people may be able to see what might happen. This is meant to be an early warning. And please comment your thoughts. Tell us what you see lining up with prophecy, but keep it godly. Don't throw insult or act superior to anyone who sees it differently. Because guess what? We're all going to be wrong about something. The only one with all the answers is Jesus. But Jesus gave us scripture so we wouldn't be ignorant. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But to see this and say nothing, that's not an option. Ezekiel 33:6 says, "But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, his blood I will require at the watchman's hand." I'm blowing the trumpet, because we may be living in the days just before the man of sin is revealed, and just before the return of Jesus Christ. Shalom, shalom friends.